So welcome to the AT Construction Podcast. And today we have Lindsey Borchard with us. So welcome, Lindsey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Lindsey's from California, Southern California, and has this amazing Instagram. You have an incredible social media presence. And I think what I like most about what you do is the educational aspect, right? You're really a big advocate for designers with Design Camp that we'll get into, and just a lot of the content you put out there, and it's people such as yourself that make this industry better for all of us, because like you're so vested. That's why I had to have you on today, so thanks for making time.
Well, that's really sweet. Yeah, it's funny because when I started this, I didn't think I wasn't going into this being like, oh, and then one day I want to be like educating and this and that. It just happened that that's how I got a lot of feedback from designers when I first started. And so I just felt like I had to pay it forward. And then when I started really learning about the industry, I realized there needs to be a lot of education in it.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, so it just snowballed. But that's a really nice intro. And
Well,
I'm
I
happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and the value proposition, I think, I've seen, at least when I started in the industry, not that I'm terribly old, but I'm getting older, I guess. So, I've seen that when I first started, it's pretty close-minded, especially on the contractor
Mhm.
side. They wouldn't share design with similar architecture. But the bad thing about that is not only we weren't able to really educate each other, but we weren't able to educate the public. And I've seen that through YouTube, through social media, through all the podcasting and YouTube and all these things that we're doing. The clients are watching, they're listening, they're understanding. And so they have more of an understanding now. I need a Lindsey to hire. And this is why I need Lindsey. And I need a builder and I need an architect. And it just sets them up, which makes our process a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you I know for sure in my business, the more that I have learned about this industry, the more that I educate myself, the more confident I get. And when you are confident in your design, in your relationship, in your knowing your own business and what your values are, you're just gonna, one, you're gonna have a better business, but you're also gonna just have a better experience. For yourself and for your clients and for everyone else who's involved, whether that's the painter or the contractor or an architect, because um, there's so many times that in the very beginning that I wasn't confident in what I was doing because I just didn't know not so much what I was doing, but I didn't know the industry as well. And I didn't know, how to run a business. And when you don't know and you're not confident, it's very easy for wrong clients or wrong people to do you wrong and to set it up to where things can go really badly really quickly. And yeah, and like I said, I was just really blessed with people that opened their arms early on to me and opened their doors and let me ask questions. And even though some of the things that I was told didn't work the way it worked for them in their business, it was still nice to be able to bounce ideas off of, or just say, hey, the way you're doing it is not working for me, but I'm trying this. Do you think this would work? Or whatever it is. And those people 5 years ago that opened the doors are still really good friends of mine now, and we're there for each other. And I don't see why there there needs to be any secrecy, I guess, with it. There's definitely things that I hold near and dear to my heart that I feel like make me stand out from other people. And I am fine and don't pass any judgment if you do want to close off and not say anything, but I don't know why. I mean, I just feel like there's a lot of projects, there's a lot of homes to be built, there's a lot of homes to furnish and decorate, and I don't feel like I just don't understand the why you wouldn't share.
Well, it's a mentality thing. I think you're speaking of the mentality of abundance as opposed to the mentality of scarcity, right? And so,
Mhm.
people that have that positive outlook and are thinking of abundance mentality, well, as you network and you look at the end goal. The end goal is as you educate the public and your client who are listening. Well, it's going to make that process so much better because as you mentioned, knowledge is key, right? The more knowledge you have,
Mhm.
you can avoid the pitfalls. And as you're in that pre-construction meeting or you're starting construction and ordering and purchasing, the process, what it takes, and lead times, and the challenges that'll happen even with COVID, right? We're figuring this out, but a lot
Mhm.
of us who have been through these issues, we're more catered and situated to get through this and navigate through it.
Right, exactly. I as I have gotten, and the education part of it kind of just fell into, I mean, it just organically happened with, I think because I knew like, oh my gosh, I had really great people. And like, I mean, I had like two people that were really, really great. Actually, Kristen from Lifestyle Company being one of them. She was one of the people I met on Instagram very early on. And like I said, I had family in Arizona. I was visiting and I said, hey, can I stop by her office? And we chatted for like 2 hours. She pretty much told me how she ran her whole business. And then
Uh,
she, you know, gave me really great advice, and we're still really good friends to this day, and check in on one another and root for another and support each other. And um
well, she's
I
giving me a hard time that you're on because I'm doing like 3 projects with her. So
Yeah. I know, I'm so jealous. Um, but she's great, and but she's very different. She runs her business different, and she has a different aesthetic, and she's doing things that I have no interest in wanting to do, e-commerce and all this stuff. So it's like, why, I don't know why we wouldn't need to share things, you know? And so when that happened, I kind of just like said, you know what, for anybody who has questions, like I'm going to be an open book. And I just felt like, especially for women in business, I wanted to really be, you know, there for other women. And especially as I get to a place in my business where I feel like I am more confident and I've learned, you know, how to speak up for myself and how to hold my ground. I think that's really important because I'm sure you're a great guy, but there's a lot of men in this industry that really don't give the credit to the women who are in this industry
Mhm.
kicking just as much butt as the men. And so I really try to educate the women on it because, like I said before, if you know and you have the education, you know what you're talking about, you're going to be more confident to stand up for yourself, to stand your ground, to say, no, this is what I want, you know, and I don't want that, or this is why I decided to do this, or this is wrong, or you're in the wrong, or whatever it is. But I mean, I didn't go to interior design school. I went to design school for fashion, and so it's kind of the same but kind of different. But everyone who I talked to who went to design school said they do not teach you how to run a business. And
Mhm.
most people who go to interior design school have the dream of owning their own interior design firm one day,
Right.
you know? And I think that that is crazy. When I kept hearing that, I was like, that is just crazy to me that there's not like a whole semester or a whole, like, I don't even know, even just a class on like how you really should run your business. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and so I don't know if it's like in me, and it's just like I have that blood running through my veins. But I'm just as passionate, maybe even a little bit more so on the business side of things as I am with the design side of things. So I think that's given me a leg up
Well, that's the most
in the
important part
industry.
because, yeah, to relate it to, my background, I study construction management, but same thing, you learn a lot of the technical side, the scheduling, the
Hmm.
software, the estimating, but you don't get a ton into the business management, into finances and
Yeah.
balance sheets and that thing, and for you to do that. And I love that you touched on the industry because my frustration, and this is the male side of things, is that I have a wife, I have 5 daughters, but I work with designers on all my projects, right? And
Hmm.
I've seen over the years, it's an industry where it is pretty male dominated, at least on the construction side.
Hmm.
And it is unfortunate because they're not always the kindest or most respectful to the women. And so it's good to have women business owners such as yourself, Lindsey, that are out there and advocates saying, hey, you know we have way more to offer than you have, like, which is true because the
Hmm.
builder side, we can't see past a lot of this stuff, and you can see it and envision it and design and be creative and things that we can't do. And that's where we have to make room and be more respectful. And from your perspective, when you're more confident, you have that information, you have your ducks in a row per se,
Hmm.
it's easier to push back, to demand that respect, which you so deserve.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's also, I think that people, you know, and I hate to generalize this with women, but I feel like, I really hate to say this, but I just feel like sometimes what I have seen, and I've talked to a lot of young interior designers, is that, and I still kind of consider myself, I mean, I've only been in business for 5 years, but I feel like they, and why I speak with the confidence level is because I feel like sometimes they just don't care about the business side of things. And that's also not fair to the contractors and the architects who are very much the business side of it is very important. And so I feel like when a designer doesn't take that ownership of their business, of knowing their process and knowing exactly what is working, what is not working in their process, and changing that and really paying attention to the business, they're not only hurting themselves, but they're then also putting the contractor and the architects in a position of working with someone who doesn't necessarily like not care about the business, but are just so concentrated on the design that it's going to make your job harder if they're not just as passionate about the business side and the process and the organization. And because I mean, the design part is like 10%. It's like nothing compared to all of the back end process, organizing, ordering, side of things.
But I would say
So
10% is probably the most important 10% because that,
it,
that really
yeah.
creates the template for me to build to, right? That creates a template
Hmm.
of purchasing and ordering and scheduling and all the things that I'm working through. It's all dictated by the designer and her design book and
Hmm.
what she wants us to execute. So let me ask you this then. If, for the builders listening, which I have a lot of builders and designers that listen, but what should we be doing better to be either more cognizant, more aware? What are things that you've seen with builders that make the process better? We're like, I like that builder.
The builders who really listen to us, and not so much just listen to be like, oh, we like this and you need to listen to what I like and execute that, but really listen to why we're trying to either change something or questioning why you're doing something, or listening to our needs. So like I was telling you in the beginning, earlier, we have this big meeting with our team before we really start the project. And we have one with the client, and then we also have one without the client. So like we can get into the nitty gritty of kind of like, this is kind of what I expect. I expect to be copied on emails. Like, I don't want to just be like, oh, that's just their designer, like, who's just going to pick out the pretty things. Like, even if it doesn't even it's something that I'm not necessarily doing, or that I don't need to necessarily put my input on, I still like to know what's going on. So I always say, like, please copy me on emails. Please include us if you're changing or want to change anything. Please include us if time frame changes. Like if the calendar changes, please send us that updated schedule, because when we don't have the information and then we look like we're not on top of it with our client, it's going to make me be like, well, why is he not on our team? Like, we're all on the same team. We all want to make a beautiful home. We all want to do what we can for our client, and to have this be a great experience. So I think the builders and the architects who have open minds, open hearts, listen to us, and consider themselves as a part of our team, and like we're one team and we're not like two separate companies, those are the people that I've loved working with.
This is tremendous information, Lindsay. I mean, the fact, speaking about being copied on emails, right? I mean, it shows, as you mentioned, communication, right? The builder's willing to communicate. They're
Mhm.
trying to make this process a healthy relationship and a successful endeavor, right? That's the whole goal here. But copying you on emails keeps you informed, because one thing that the builders may not realize is, as a designer, well, you in most cases are also furnishing the home. So you have
Mhm.
shipping, you have storage, you have, you're holding
Mhm.
this product. And if the project's being delayed by 2 months, you better know, because there's storage fees, right? This is part of
Mhm.
this. And you're scheduling the art to be installed and the furniture to be installed and rugs. And so this whole coordination, there's so much that you're doing, that if the builder's not being upfront and treating you like the professional you are as part of the team, then that's where you can have those breakdowns for sure.
Yeah. I also really love builders and architects who take real pride in their work, and who also are not, I mean, even though I don't ever plan on being an architect or a builder, I still want to know why it is that you put that in the plan, or can you explain to me how you're building that, so that I can speak better to it when I'm trying to sell, a design. And it again just goes back to knowledge. I want to have our builders and architects also know that I really respect what they're doing and their time and their expertise. And I will go to them and ask them their opinions. And I would love for them to come and ask for our opinions too. It doesn't need to be on every single thing, but I think when I go back to thinking of like the like awful experiences versus the good experiences, it's the people who have the mentality of like, we are all in this together, and we might have different, company names, but we're still one team on this
Yeah.
job.
And you're both going to benefit from it. And as you mentioned, I mean, if we as builders are not communicating, hey, Lindsey, here's our fabricator for all your countertops, here's where we're going to have the seams,
Hmm.
here's how we're going to have the transition or
Hmm.
the book match, and here's the fireplace, here's what we plan on doing to support it. I mean, you really have to be involved because that look is really important as well. And if we're not communicating that, it puts you in a tough spot where what you've envisioned, we're not doing or executing from our side. And,
Yeah.
that part's super important.
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, I'm learning that, even this house we're building, we had the fabricator didn't template the bench, and it just looked so bad, and the client was so pissed and was just like, "Well, this looks so bad, Lindsey. I can't even believe you would do this." And I'm just like, "Well, I didn't like do it because no one told me they were actually templating anything and installing." So it just made me look dumb, and like I didn't know what was going on, and it irritated me. And I was just like, "Why wouldn't you just have that conversation like, hey, we're running ahead of things and we're going to do this?" And then we would jump on a FaceTime, we would jump on a call, we would go down there, like whatever we would do to make it work, And it ended up being fine, and it was, thank God, just a small little bench and not like all the countertops. But um yeah, I mean, I think sometimes the contractors or subs too think that they know how designers would want something, and they just do it, and it could be as simple as like the grout lines, or laying out the tile, or doing a bent fabricating something without them. But um placing a light switch, it's like, for us at least, we are so intentional about our designs, and like it's there for a reason or it's not there for a reason. And so even those small decisions, like I get there's a lot of decisions that have to be made without us. Like we're not on the job every day, and and the client is not, we're not talking to the client and the builder every day about little things. But um, I think just having that communication of like, hey, we had to change this, so at least we're in the know of it. I mean, that's all I can really ask.
I love that. I'll give a personal story. So I grew up in industry. I mentioned I grew up in Southern California,
Hmm.
electrical, and then, went to school, and my first year out of college, I worked for a production builder. And in production building, you don't typically have designers, at least the company I worked for, we didn't, we kind of had a spec book and we'd build to it. Um, and so there'd be questions on like termination points or seams and things, and we just make that decision.
Hmm.
Well, I always wanted to do custom homes. So after a year, I go do custom homes. And there was this super talented designer named Beth McGehee here in town. She's based in Scottsdale. And so here I'm this young, professional, I'd say, not really professional. I was 25, but I remember I was working in the house, and I made some decisions, and she reprimanded me. She's like, Brad, what are you doing? This is not your decision to make. This is not how we do this. This is not what I specify in my design book. And it was
Yeah.
this call to repentance. And I remember thinking, wow, like, and the reason being, it goes back to what you said. She's someone that was very educated in construction. She understood design, and it was a teaching moment. And from then on, it's almost like that light went off, and it's been a great relationship with all my designers. Even Beth, she's a really good friend of mine now, and she's
Yeah.
taught so much. So I think that's really important, because us as builders sometimes get sidetracked, and we need to always make sure that the right arm of our business, which is our designer, that we're communicating with them and keep them in the loop.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. Like sometimes, we'll be on sites and we're making these quick decisions too, and we forget, oh, there's a client that we need to communicate this with, And so, and it's kind of the same thing. So it's like we'll make these changes and be like, oh, we need to tell the client that we did that, because then the client's going to come back and be like, well, what, I thought we weren't going to do that, or I thought like no one told me about this. So yeah, it's I always just kind of go back like, let's get this all hammered out together as much as we can and keep each other in the loop. And because there's a lot going on. You have a lot of projects, I have a lot of projects, and we have families, and we have employees and other things to manage. And I think the more people that can have their eyes on a job, the less mistakes are going to be made, the less irritation that's going to go on, the more trust that's going to be built. So I mean, yeah, just copy me on an email.
Yeah.
All I want.
There you go. That's the lesson today. Copy Lindsey email.
Yeah.
Um, so one question I have for you, because this has been fascinating. I know we spoke about this off air too, is one of the biggest challenges I'm having is pricing, right? We're trying to figure out, okay, we have budgets, we do the design, we do the architecture. And as much as, I try to be involved and forecast, there's unknowns, there's products that's not available, but you've done a really good job, setting the tone for budget. So I guess speak to that. How are you setting budgets with your clients or builders? And then how are you managing that process with product that may not be available that you've spec'd within budget at the time?
Well, the first thing, and whether it's a furnishing job or a new home or a small remodel or whatever, is I have to establish a budget. Like, I do not want to start design without knowing a budget. And some clients will say, well, I don't have a budget, or let's just see where it is, where it is. Well, no, everyone has a budget. And if you don't have a certain number, then I always tell my clients, give me the number that if I tell you I'm going $1 over that number, you're going to have a stomach ache. Then there's your starting point. So if I tell you, okay, everything's going to cost you, 400,000, and that's going to make you want to puke, well, then there, we got to be under that. So you do have a budget, actually. So I think that we just have to establish like what's their threshold, but then also like I really try to get to know them. So I try to get to know them firsthand, just to understand how they live their life. A lot of our clients are young families who, live really hard in their home and have pets and have kids. And, especially now, I know we're not always going to be kind of locked into our homes, but homes are living, people are living so hard in their homes right now. And so I think for us, we try to understand, like, do you entertain? Do you, what do you like to spend your money on when you're like shopping for home decor? Are you going to spend a lot of money on a rug, or are you going to spend a lot of money on art, or do you like lighting? Because that's going to help dictate our budget, right? So I might have a client that say, well, I don't really care, I don't want real marble. I don't want to spend a ton on backsplash, but like, I don't mind spending $10,000 on a light, so it's trying to understand that in the beginning and seeing where they like to spend their money, what they like doing, what their family life is like. And obviously, if it's like their forever home, if this is their 5-year home, is this a rental home, like whatever it is, I mean, those are going to dictate budgets too. Are they planning on reselling this sometime? And then once we kind of get to know that aspect, we go to the builder and kind of relay that information too. And a lot of the times, you can give kind of rough estimates, but until you have the design, like, you're really not going to be able to really give them a more detailed estimate or proposal. And so we always say, like, get your designers in early, invest in that design. Whether or not you're going to move forward with all of that design is a different story, but at least you can get more accurate bids from contractors, builders, whatever it is. Now, when we're building a home, a bit different, right? Because like with the remodel, like everything's really built and established, and you kind of know like what areas you're focusing on, and then you can do the design. And we always say, like, we'll do the design first, and then we'll get the contractors kind of involved, get those bids out, and then kind of establish what that budget overall will be. Now with building and new construction, it's harder because there's so much more that needs to be allocated toward the actual build, right? So what we like to do is we kind of like look at what the builder has given to our clients, and we'll kind of see those allowances and say, like, we're going to need more than $10 a square foot for a tile, or we're going to need to do this. Typically we tell our builders to just take out the items that we would be purchasing so that we can handle it kind of on our own, and it makes it a little bit easier. So like all the finishing stuff, we just have our builders take out completely. So things like the lighting, the hardware, plumbing, like all the trim pieces for plumbing, even sometimes countertops, things like that, we just have them take out, and we'll have that be part of our material budget.
Yeah. Have you ever had a challenge from your side, just as far as like the warranty side or product procurement? I mean, or is that, do you feel you have a pretty good handle as far as the finishes go?
Yeah, I haven't had any issues because I have our clients, I have really good reps and showrooms out here that we work with. So I specify like for plumbing. I will not buy plumbing for for our clients. I will specify, I will get them a quote, I will work with our rep to get everything, and then I have them purchase directly with our our rep. And he's going to do everything from making sure that all of the pieces that, the valve and all of that stuff that you don't think about, the drain and all those things are included in on that. And then we'll make sure that we get it on site, it's labeled, it's everything. So we take care of that. So for us, like, we're full service. So the things that if we're not going to purchase it or be a part of that, then we really just say we're not going to handle it. Because what I don't want is, I don't want to specify it and then not purchase it and not take care of it, not organize it, not get it on site. And then all of a sudden there's a problem and it hasn't been ordered or it's not on site. And that's going to fall back on me because I picked it out, always in the client's eyes, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say, let us just handle it, because if something goes wrong with it anyways, I'm going to get to blame. So I might as well just handle it all. That's like the little control freak in me. But as far as the things that we don't really, that we don't purchase cabinetry, all of that, we work with our builders for that. That's just an area that I'm not going to touch. Um, I don't have the type of insurances that you guys have, and I don't want to touch that.
Yeah, which makes sense.
To be honest.
Cabinetry is always a big purchase item.
Yeah, I don't want to touch that. Even sometimes with countertops, I'm not touching that. Appliances, I'm not touching that.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of designers that are like, well, I want to purchase everything and do everything. It's like, well, it's a lot of liability,
Mm-hmm.
and I just don't want that. That's a lot of pressure and stress on my shoulders that I don't
Yeah, as
want.
if you don't have enough already, right?
Right, exactly. So
Well,
we established that, the builders and I established that in that meeting I was talking about. We kind of go through and say, here's the things that I would like to purchase and be in control of, and here's the things that you can.
No, that's really good. It's a good starting point. And I know you mentioned, so you do that together, you figure out with the client, the budget and the builder, and then you also meet the builder separately.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the questions you're asking because, when you're speaking with the client and you really want to understand, well, is this a 5-year plan? Are they looking just to maybe put a facelift on this so they can get some ROI and sell this in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Is this their end all be all home? What's their living? Do they like rugs or lighting? Because these things can be expensive. Where do they want to put their dollars? And it really
Mm-hmm.
sets you up for success. So, in addition to that, I mean, you can ask the questions, you can put the budget together, you can have a good pulse for the overall design and the finishes that you're going to be controlling, with the builder. But what happens now which we're dealing with, that product was spec'd, a lot of our designs are up front. I'm very adamant that
Mm-hmm.
we have our design book so we can price everything and then we start construction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I already know the price, but I'm not purchasing the tile for 6 months because I'm doing a hillside build. It takes some time. I don't want this sitting here and now it comes time to order and that tile is discontinued. So that's, how are you
Right.
dealing with that aspect of things where product is hit or miss, from our vendors right now?
So we had that issue with one of our projects in LA right now, the kitchen backsplash, which is like, the showstopper, of course, of the home, um, was back ordered and like on a boat somewhere in the middle of the ocean. And we all know customs is like a joke right now, and shipping is a problem and all this. So their hard deadline to get into the house is end of January. And so we had to come up and just say, okay, again, it goes back to educating the client, and it goes back to being really transparent. And having those hard conversations. Like, I know a lot of people, and this is why I talk about with wanting to educate this with women, have a really hard time with confrontation and having hard conversations, having awkward conversations. And I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem talking about money. I don't have a problem talking about if I messed up somewhere. I don't have a problem telling the builder that they were in the wrong and they need to fix it, or it's my problem, or if the client has unrealistic expectations. And I do it in a nice way, but I am very I just had to learn that I had to get a backbone to be able to do that, because um, it just makes the process so much better for everyone involved. So what we did is we said, okay, here's the problem. Your tile's on a boat in the middle of the ocean, and best case scenario from what the rep knows, and this is just what the rep knows, like she's also just getting information, so it's hearsay. So she's saying best case scenario is that it's going to get in at this date, we'll be able to install it, you'll be in your home mid-January. But here's worst case, we don't get it in time. And so then we came up with a PDF, a design presentation, it wasn't grand, but we just kind of put options, 1, 2, I think we gave them 6 options of here's alternatives. And we always this is another thing, and this is why the communication between the designer and the builder has to be really key, because I always tell my contractors, subs, anything, if there is a problem, do not go to the client first.
I love that. Yeah. And
you have to come to me.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come to me, because I will not go to my client with a problem without having solutions already done. So when I found out about that tile, we spent the next 2 days before we even told them that the tile might not even be coming, sourcing other options. So we would say, okay, tile might not come here, but we have a plan, and here's our plan. And here's 6 options. These 3 options are gonna not look as great, but they're gonna be in stock, and they'll be either on budget or a little below budget. Here's 3 other options that look just as good or better, and they're more maybe the correct size or whatever, but they're gonna be more expensive. And then I let the client make that decision. So I'll lead them in the way. I'll say, here's my top pick from the low budget, the one that maybe is not as great, and here's my top choice for the one that is going to be more expensive. And I just outweigh I really work through the decision making with my client, but ultimately I let the client make that decision, so they don't feel like they were pressured into buying something that was more expensive, or it's like, what's the priority? Do you want to get in your house faster, or do you want the correct tile, or do you want to just get it done to get it done? Because sometimes to get it done just to get it done is going to cost you more, because now it's rushed, and you're going to have to pay rush fees. You're going to have to probably pay more for our labor to come in right away to do it really quick. So I try to, again, educate the client of saying, okay, if we go with this option, here's kind of like what that means. And if we go with this option, here's what that means. It's really all I can do. I mean, I try to stay on budget, but also I'm dealing with so many clients who want to not pay for the best workmanship, but then expect the best workmanship.
That's the hardest thing we deal with.
But unfortunately, that's not reality.
Yeah.
And it's having those conversations of, it's an awkward conversation to have with somebody saying, well, you can't expect perfection when you're paying, like, you get what you pay for, and you can say it in a way that's not those words,
Right.
but that's just setting up the reality of it. And we try to just really hard to tell our clients, like, if you don't want to pay X amount for this great tiler that is going to just pay attention to such the details, and it's going to be perfection, and we've never had a problem with them, you don't want to pay $10,000 for that, you want to pay $3,000, well, that's a really big difference. So now when you're complaining about grout lines, or you're complaining about this, like, well, what did you expect? And it's not to rag on someone who pays, who charges $3,000, they're going to be awful. I know a lot of people who charge not as much as they should charge, and they're really great, but there's just a level that people who charge more know that they're worth more.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think one of the biggest keys that you mentioned is just the communication, because there's a lot of things we can solve, designer, builder, architect, behind the scenes, and at least, if anything, come with options and alternatives, right? It's funny, because as you're sharing the story about, the backsplash, today we had an issue. So one of the HOAs that we're building in, they have a requirement. You can't have equipment left over the weekend. Some are big earth moving
Mhm.
equipment over the weekend or over holidays. Well, the issue is this project we broke ground and it's supposed to start Monday. Well, it's Christmas week. So our
Yeah.
grader's like, well, based on the duration, I only had 2 trip charges in, $750 to come pull my equipment for the weekend. But if I start Monday, then it's going to be 4 trip charges because you got the holidays and everything else. And my super's like, what do I do? And I says, well, it's pretty easy. Let's lay it out and we go to the client. Do you want to wait 2 weeks or start now? And there's just going to be an extra 1,500. And the more information you give them, as you mentioned, you let
Mhm.
them make that decision. And it really comes down to, as you said, when you are assertive and you're educated and you understand your process, and you have a bigger view of everything, it's easier to be more direct, and have the answers.
Mhm.
So I, I,
Yeah.
I would imagine this is what inspired you to start Design Camp. So talk to me about
Mhm.
Design Camp and what inspired that and, what that is.
Well, Design Camp is a 4-day retreat that myself and Anastasia with the Identity Collective, who's like a marketing and branding company, who does our marketing and branding. Sorry, she doesn't do our branding, our marketing. Um, we I started working with her doing social media posts and having her doing our marketing. And the first time that we met, which was in Las Vegas at Las Vegas Market, we were both speaking on a panel and we just instantly clicked, and we were just talking kind of about like our goals for our business. We're kind of at the same time frame as our both of our businesses are kind of launched at the same time, and we were both kind of just talking about our dreams and goals and aspirations. And I was starting to get really heavily more into educating. I don't, at that time it didn't really feel like it was educating. I just felt like I was sharing like my experiences. I didn't really feel like I'm educating you on this, but it was just more like, here's what I'm doing and it seems to be working, so I'm going to let you guys know, so maybe it will work for you. And I remember telling her, God, I would love to like host like a mastermind, or like, and kind of selfishly like wanted to like be able to grab that knowledge from other people too. And she was like, oh my gosh, I've wanted to do that. And so we said, well, let's do it. Like, let's just do it. Let's create this. And that was in January and of 2019. And then in October of 2019, we hosted our, in October. Was it October? Was it February? Gosh, I'm like, my time frame is so, no, it was
All of our
February.
time frames off.
Yeah, in February we hosted our first event. So like a year later, we had our first design camp. But I think what I really wanted was a place for, because you can get education from so much, right? You can listen to a bunch of podcasts, you can read a bunch of books, you can talk to different designers, but I just felt like there was nothing out there that would just like immerse, like that you can immerse yourself in for like a couple of days. And just like, when do you ever get the time to really just like focus on you and your business, right? Because a lot of people, like, podcasts are great and I've learned so much from podcasts, but I'm not like sitting at my home listening to podcasts. It's usually in the car when I'm going to a client's house, when I'm going to this, like when I'm on a run or walking, or right when I'm doing something else, you're listening to it. And I really wanted to create something, I know Anastasia did too, where we could come together, where it would be a really intimate group. So that was always super important to us, between like 10 to 15 people, because what we really wanted is we wanted that group to walk away with friendships that, and a group of people that they could then continue to learn from after design camp. So it's not that you're just coming in for 4 days and learning what Anastasia does on the marketing and branding side and learn what I do on the business side of our industry, but then it's like, I mean, to me, the most priceless thing is you're walking away with 10, other women or men. I mean, we've only had women come so far, but 10 other people that are continuing to be supporters of you and to help you along the way. And the best thing about design camp so far is the women that have gone, and they say like, we're all on a text chain, and we're all, we were still all talking to each other, and we're sharing information, and then seeing them grow is like, it's just so rewarding. And then selfishly, I get to learn new information. So that's kind of why we started
Well, I think the
design camp.
camaraderie is really big because not
Um,
only, as you mentioned, is continuing education. So you have 3 to 4 days of all this information, and as you mentioned, probably one of the most valuable things. It's funny because as you go, either on trips with vendors or at the build show or design show or the furniture market, you're going to meet people and you build these lasting relationships. Well, I can only imagine here at Design Camp. Well, now everyone's speaking the same language. They're all trying to better their business and their portfolio and their process, and so you build these friendships where now, as you mentioned, it's not only are they getting a lot of information to take home, but now you have a network of people and resources where,
mhm.
hey, I'm having an issue, Lindsey, how would you deal with this?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we had our last design camp. One of the, because they're staying, like, some people are sharing rooms. We're eating together. We're hanging out together. We're drinking together. We're talking about our families. We're getting to know each other. And one girl ended up working for another attendee. So it's like
Oh,
you never know, like, how things are gonna what things are going to come from that, right? Like, she didn't come to design camp thinking, oh, I'm going to try to find a job, but it's like she came with her own business and they ended up living in the same town, and she's working for one of the other ladies. And I just think it's so awesome to they would have never found each other, if we didn't have design camp.
what are some of the services you offer? Like when they go, you know, I'm sure we want people to sign up to attend, but I mean, without giving away everything, what are some of the topics or things you address for the attendees?
Yeah, so we have about 3 days, and one of the days a little bit more interactive with, like, a photo shoot, and they get to have it's like, it's a little bit more fun and not like more classroom, but they get headshots, and we get to play around with a photographer and kind of really show them, like, how to photograph their work, and then what to do with that. But the first 2 days are, like, really immersed in branding and marketing, and then the business side. So the first day, we're really focusing on how to price out your services, the differences between charging a flat rate versus an hourly rate or whatnot. And then I charge, I think, probably the most different than any other, but I kind of have different phases. I charge differently for those different phases. So I go over kind of how I charge and why I charge that. We go over trade vendors, which is a huge thing for designers, and working with the trade, and really how you really need to be doing that. Like, a lot of designers come in being like, I'm not even working with trades, um, and I'm talking more like the wholesale trade. So,
Yeah.
like, working with the furniture vendors, and that, I mean, that was a huge turning point for my business. So I really want, and it's a very scary, intimidating part of the business, because it has to do with numbers and money and markup and scary words that a lot of people don't like to deal with. So I really tried to talk a lot about that. We share our favorite vendors, and then we talk about contracts. We talk about taxes, like all the boring stuff that you need to know. We talk about hiring, who to hire first, and how to expand your team. Anastasia talks about social media and talks about each platform really in depth, and how to make it work for you to build your company, to get growth, to get exposed. We talk about um, branding your business and websites and all the programs we use. I mean, we are really spelling it out, especially me. Like, I am spelling out how I run my business in design camp. And what's great is that there's just so much time for people to ask me really specific individual questions that pertain to their business, right? So sometimes when we're teaching and we're telling people, that's great, but it might not, you might be doing something differently, or maybe you don't work on construction, you only work on furnishing jobs, and you don't want to work on construction, but you have a bunch of questions on furnishings. Like, there's so much opportunity for someone to come talk to me and have that one-on-one time too. And I think that's really valuable, especially with Anastasia too, who charges for her services. You can get this, like, really one-on-one time with her. And talk about what it is. I mean, we've had, and what I don't think Anastasia and I realized is how therapeutic it is for people, and how, I mean, I think a lot of the first one we did, so we really only did one design camp, and we do two groups back to back. So we've done two design camps in kind of one setting before COVID hit. We were supposed to do one in October, which we had to
Has COVID
postpone.
affected? Yeah.
Yeah, we had one scheduled in October, which is why I initially said we did start in October, but we had one in February and then everything shut down. And then we were supposed to have one in October. And we just felt that, there were still so many unknowns, and things were a little bit better, but there were still so many unknowns. So we just decided to postpone it to spring. So we will continue to do it. We'll probably be doing it sometime between April and May this year. And then we'll do them several times a year. But when we did it in February, it was really emotional, and there was a lot of crying and a lot of support. And I think that there were a lot of women that we all opened up so much and talked about how it's really lonely being, sometimes when you're a designer, when you're starting out, it's just you. So it can be very lonely, it can be very isolating. And if people aren't sharing anything, it can feel very lost, at times when you're trying to grow a business and you're trying to expand, or you're trying to have that balance of being a mom and still take caring of your household, but building a business. And some of these women weren't getting support from their husbands. They were having a lot of self-doubt as to whether they should leave their day job and do this passion. And I think that it was a very eye-opening experience of, we all just felt super supportive, and it just brought everyone to tears all the time of like, I think it was just the first time a lot of people felt like, I could do this because someone is in my corner right here that I haven't had before, telling me and rooting for me and saying that I can do this. And now they're walking away with a group of people that they have continually in their corner. And I think that was the most shocking thing to Anastasia and I, that we always wanted that to happen, but the fact that it did, and now we see these people like just, growing so much and getting their own studios and hiring people and like really making something of themselves, and it makes us really proud.
I love that. I mean, I love the empowerment side that you're speaking about. I love the therapeutic. I think in our industry, even on the construction side, design side, we don't have enough of that. It's,
Yeah.
people don't realize, I'm sure you do, Lindsey, from doing this for a while now, that it's a tough industry. It's really hard. You have a lot to balance between the builder and the architect and your client demands, and then manufacturers and suppliers. And it's this constant battle every day. And there's issues you're trying to resolve and alternatives you're trying to find, and then pricing and, all these things that are, these are big investments our clients are making. And, there's such value. And I love just the empowerment, the women empowerment as far as getting together and building each other up. And, I'm sure that's accelerated your growth, even as much as, now you go there and you pick up all these little things. So if you were to start, Lindsey Brooke Design today, what would you do different? I mean, what would you have done different, starting now?
It's funny because, you sent over your list of questions, and that was the one question that I was like, how am I going to answer this? Because I truly don't feel like I would change anything. There's a lot of stuff that I learned, and I think because this started as a hobby for me. I didn't go to design school. I didn't work for another firm. This was really started as a passion, and it grew very organically. And it went from, doing e-design from people I met off Instagram, to doing friends' houses, to doing their friends' houses, and then just gradually getting clients. And I don't know if I was really trying to think like, oh, well, would I try to do more construction first? Would I try to break into, going to builders first or whatever? But I feel like all those little decisions like have really led me to where I am today. And that's what I'm most happy with. I mean, I feel so good about where we are right now, that I feel like if I were to change anything, I might not be where I am.
Well,
Would it make me more successful? I don't know,
well,
so it's hard for me.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said about being a trailblazer, right? In the sense that as you're building it, you're going to learn along the way, and there's things you're not going to make the same mistake twice. And you're going to, these experiences have built to what you are today. But is there maybe an aspect of the business that you feel would have give you a better head start? Would it have been, as you alluded to earlier, maybe having established vendors or understanding the vendor side, you know?
So that, yeah, that's, I think that, you know, that's a different question, right? Of like, what do I wish I knew? Well, gosh, I wish I knew a lot, but, uh, you know, I really wish the whole first year of my business, I knew nothing about trade vendors. I mean, nothing. I was shopping at Pottery Barn. I was shopping at Target. I was, you know, which was great, but like I missed out on so much revenue. And I then had, you know, a year later had established clients, and I was still trying to figure out my process of my business and how just the day in and day out of things were working. And then on top of it, I had to learn this whole other side to the industry very quickly so that I can access it and so that I can move forward with it. And that was really hard. So when we talk to people at design camp, they're like, well, I'm not ready. I'm not there yet. It's like, no, you got to start now, because I want you to know everything. I want you to know what vendors you want to open up with so that when you do have that client that's ready, you are ready. Because that was really hard to not know anything about and to feel like, oh, what is this? Oh, I can buy this at what price? And then I can
Right.
sell it at what price? And I can do what? And I can like not like I can actually make my designs different from people that are walking into Pottery Barn. You know, it's like it was so eye-opening. And like then your designs, I mean, my designs just got so much better. I just got so much better as a designer because I had so much access to great things now. So that is my 1000% like thing that I wish I knew. And I would say probably how to charge, like really how to charge, how to like write good estimates. Um, but again, I think that comes with confidence,
Yeah, some of that comes with confidence, but I
you
think
know?
you're right. The accelerator is understanding the purchasing side, you know, because
Hmm.
especially as a designer, I mean, and the same is for builders to some extent, there's only so much fee you can charge. Even if you're the most talented,
Hmm.
everyone wants Lindsay. Well, there's still so much that people are going to value on a design fee. But then, you know,
Hmm.
the added value you bring where they're getting product and your resources, you know, are more expansive. You know, so I guess how often now, I know you're more established, you're more educated, you really have this good process. Do you have a lot of clients coming in that are still maybe, to use the term, maybe a little green, where they don't understand the design process, they don't understand the fee? I mean, how much are you having to educate your clients, or most of them fairly savvy?
We no, I mean, we still have a lot of clients that, I mean, we have a mixture of people who have worked with designers and who haven't, but it really doesn't matter if they have worked with designers because their designer, that the process is going to be completely different, right? There's no, like I said, there's no kind of blueprint as to how to run your business as an interior designer or as a contractor or whatever. But so I think it doesn't really matter. I still have to educate my client on our process, even if they've worked with 10 designers in the past. So I think that, you know, for us, like we have to educate, and sometimes it's frustrating because we're in it all the time, right? So it's like, duh, that's the knowledge. But I have to remember that our clients aren't in the industry, so they don't know. The only thing they know is Restoration Hardware and Pottery Barn and Home Depot and HGTV, and you know. So I have to say, like, I really have to teach them of like, there's this whole world out there, and this is how it really is done, and this is how we do things here. And there's a lot of times in the beginning where, you know, I would say how I run my business, and people would tell me how to, you know, no, I'm not, no, this is how I want to do it. And, you know, we don't work with those people anymore. So we educate them on our business. We have a lot of PDFs and a lot of paperwork that explain our process. We talk about it a lot. So by the end of working with me, that client should really know a lot about our business in our industry. And because I'm constantly telling them the same thing over and over and over again, not to annoy them because they don't understand it, but because they're just not in the industry and they need that constant reminder of, you know, no, this can't get shipped to your house because it needs to go to a commercial receiving warehouse, because this 50-foot truck is not going to be able to come into your neighborhood.
Right.
You know, like it's things like that of like, you know, that is why, like, I know you can't purchase it because it's under my account. I have to purchase, you'll purchase it through us. We're full service design. That's why you came to us, you know? So it's things like that's like just this, the education from the very start, before they're even a client, we start educating them. And we're doing that throughout the whole process of working with us.
Well, it's key. I mean, for anyone listening, the more processes, the more education, the more value you bring in, especially in those beginning meetings, are valuable because, from I've seen it. I'm sure from your side where clients come in, they're like, "Well, Lindsey, I know what I like. I already know what I want. I have my Pinterest board or I have my Instagram
Right.
saves. So I'm a good decision maker." But as you mentioned, there's so much more to it. When you're saying, "Well, here's the value I'm bringing," right? That there's a lot more to just saying, well, I like this tile, I like this countertop, because there's information the builder needs and there's processes. And so the more you have that under control, and this goes back to the question I get a lot where other builders will say, Brad, well, I'm not getting the right clients. Like, how do I get this client that you have? Well, it's to your point, like Lindsey, you said you've built a successful firm now where now you can pick and vet these clients and help them. So the ones that truly understand the value you bring, those are the ones that are going to be a great fit anyways.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've learned from my mistakes, and I've learned from, just doing it for several years now, and knowing who I want to work with. And I mean, my time is valuable, and that has taken me a while to understand. It's like you have 5 kids at home that you also need to be with, and have energy to give to them. And when you have a client that is just draining all of that from you, like, you're just gonna not be able to give what you need to other people in your life. And so for me, if I'm gonna, and I'm sure you are too, like, I am a workaholic. I love working because I'm passionate about my business. And so it's just as important to me as my family. But still, at the end of the day, I need to separate that, and I need to put the energy in other people and other things that I like, right? And so that is a direct reflection of who I work with and who I decide to let in, because I'm feeding off of their energy as they are mine. So I think that, as far as like being at a place, and we're a small firm still, like I only have 4 employees, so we can only take on so many jobs. So we have to be selective with what we're taking. I can't take on smaller jobs because I won't be able to pay my employees if all we're doing is taking on small jobs. But we don't have minimums, and we don't say no to those small jobs. Just depends on, when we can take you, and what we have in our pipeline. But yeah, I mean, I think just being able to I just go back to, like, educating somebody is going to give them the knowledge. They're going to feel confident. They're going to feel good, being transparent with them, having open communications, like with any relationship. Like, you have to have that with your, significant other. You have to have that with your work wife or husband. You have to have that with your client.
Yes. It all comes down to communication at the end. I mean, it is so true.
Right. It does. Right. It's like, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think clients, I know we're kind of like going off on different things, but I think that my clients, I know, like our Dallas project, like they came to us because I mean, process and systems are so important to me that I spent money making a video about our processes and what it would be like to show potential clients, this is what you get from us. This is kind of like, and this is just a small part of what it is. And our Dallas client worked with other designers who had horrible processes, and the processes were very important to them. And they saw our video and hired us because of that. And they were fine with paying more money, that we were in California, that they were going to have to fly us out. They were going to pay more money in some shipping stuff for the stuff that we have here in our studio. And they were okay with that, knowing that their priority of having the processes on lockdown were going to really happen for them, and that was a priority for them. They were willing to pay for that. So it's really important to not only have that for yourself, but like, you don't know where that's going to take you, like where having that transparency and attracting that out into the world, like, so I mean, it's crazy. It's just like, we got that from just that.
From the video.
From the video. And I never thought that we would get, I always thought like, oh, well, we would get clients all over for our aesthetic and like our look. And that was definitely a part of it, but another big part of it was how we work.
Well, it's a plug there for how you market your business, how you brand yourself, which you've done a phenomenal job, Lindsey. I've been very impressed just with not only the conversation, which I knew would go this way, just having followed you and seeing, what you do for the industry, which I love. So what's next exciting upcoming for the team and for you?
Well, we are opening our studio up to come for people to come shop. So that's really exciting. We've been working throughout this whole year and unfortunately, we had to put that on hold. It was supposed to open in the spring. Um, but that will be open starting in January. And we're hoping to be able to offer some shopping services for people who either can't get into our, our pipeline, or who can't afford our services can get a piece of our aesthetic or some of our products that we offer. So that's exciting. We will have design camp hopefully going on, and more design camps happening next year. And then we have some really great new construction projects that we're working on that I'm really proud of, that we'll be finishing up next year, and kind of really diving into that, because that's, like I said, California is built up already, so there's not a lot of new developments that are happening here. So it's a little bit harder to kind of break into that part of design out here right now. And so the fact that we're getting into that is really exciting for us.
Well, that's amazing. And where can our listeners find you?
Well, they can find us on Instagram at Lindsey Brooke Design, and at our website at Lindsey Brooke Design. And then if they're local to Southern California, our studios in Westlake Village.
Well, that's super
Right
exciting.
outside of Los Angeles.
Yeah, we'll have that in the show notes. And again, Lindsey, I know you're super busy, and especially with the holidays, so can't thank you enough for making time today.
Oh, of course. Thank you. This is so much fun.